Hello and welcome to Stripe Dialogues. A very good evening to everyone, to all our viewers. Today is our 25th episode since we started this channel of discussion on national security, nation building, and geopolitics and geostrategy. Today we are going to discuss about Turkey, and to discuss this, we have with us two eminent personalities who are going to be our guests. Welcome, Brigadier Dhaya sir and Ms. Maria to this show of ours. So we are going to basically kickstart the discussion by what has happened recently. In fact, it's today's development, wherein the grain deal has been cancelled by Russia. Now, Turkey was a very important player in brokering this deal last year. Unfortunately, this year also Erdogan thought that the deal will go through, and he had made a statement saying that the deal is through before he went actually to the NATO for the Vilnius summit meet. Unfortunately, because of the damage to the road bridge which took place yesterday, the bridge between Crimea and the rest of the Ukraine, the entire deal has been cancelled by Russia. Of course, this has not been given as a reason. Russians have given some other reasons for the cancellation of the deal, but you can understand where it is coming from. Some activities also took place a few days back when Erdogan took some steps which were not to the liking of Russia. So maybe have your comments on this. How is it? How is now Erdogan going to place himself or pitch himself as far as his relations with Russia are concerned, as also he has to balance the NATO. So I'll ask first Brigadier Daya, and then I'll see comments of Maria. Okay.
Uh, I think Miss Maria would know it more authentically. But how I look at it is this, that the grain deal is premised on both countries, Russia and Ukraine, being able to export their farm products. Russia, as you know, is the bigger player. I think 3 to 4 times bigger than Ukraine as far as exports of food grains is concerned. And in addition to that, it's also a big exporter of fertilizers. Now, when the grain deal was arrived at, the world was suffering from very high food prices.
Okay.
And obviously, when this grain deal started, it gave relief to many poor countries in Africa, Latin America, and even in Asia. But two anomalies took place. One, because Russia was barred from transactions through SWIFT, there was a problem of payments to Russia for whatever one was importing from Russia. That was one major reason. Second, most of the food grains were not going to the poor countries. Now, you'd be surprised that Ukraine has exported 34.2 million metric tons of corn and wheat, about 9 million tons of wheat and 24.8 million metric tons of corn.
Okay.
Now, out of this total exports, 25% of the exports were going to China.
Okay.
About 16% were going to Spain,
Mm-hmm.
which was converting it into animal feed for poultry and piggery for rest of the Europe. And about 10%, which was mainly wheat, was going to Turkey, and Turkey was converting it into flour and pasta and selling it to Europe. So
Okay.
therefore, all this talk of poor countries receiving the food grains was not really true, except for one odd ship which went to, let's say, Nigeria or Senegal or Ivory Coast or something like that. Some went to Egypt, of course, but most of it was otherwise went to Italy and other places. So that was one part. The second part was that Russia itself, although it was a exporter by a multitude of multiplication of four, at least in food grains, and almost single-handedly of fertilizers, was not being able to get the full benefit of it for two reasons. One was, like I said, SWIFT was they were barred from accessing SWIFT sort of payments, and the second was that the shipping companies, which are mostly controlled by the Western countries, were not ready to go and pick up wheat, corn, etc., from Russian ports. So as a
Okay.
result, Russia was miffed that, look, my oil and gas to Europe has been stopped. Now, my food, which the world requires for bringing down the food prices, is not being is there's somebody who's obstructing this. So they've been saying this for a long time. So what happened was that even earlier, 2, 3, 4 months back, Russia had stopped it for some time. But after 2, 3 days time, when Erdogan intervened, when the UN Secretary General intervened, they restarted it under the promise that Russia would also be given. The opportunities will be afforded to Russia also to export its food grains and fertilizers. So this has been going on, and now that the timeline was coming, Russia obviously had to decide one way or the other whether to continue with it or not. So instead of the moral obligation being thrust upon Russia, Russia decided to play hardball by privileging its own interests.
Okay.
As far as Erdogan is concerned, yes, I agree with you with your comment that the attack on Kerch bridge over the Kerch Strait,
Yeah.
um, it may not be the only reason why this deal has been cancelled, but obviously it
It's
also had to be Erdogan also had to be shown his place. You see, after
yeah.
all, when he let the Azov regiment people accompany Zelensky back from Turkey
Absolutely.
after
Absolutely.
after making a promise, after a proper promise to Russia that these guys will be kept till the end of the war, he'll keep them there.
Correct.
So Erdogan has been acting too smart. What has happened is that on one side, Russia is the largest trading partner of Turkey, and Turkey needs them. Turkey gets the cheapest gas that any country in the world gets
Yeah.
from Russia.
Correct.
They have just operationalized the first reactor of the four units of Akkuyu nuclear power plant.
Hmm.
So Turkey, whose economy is in bad shape, is really being helped by trade with Russia. So on
Correct.
one side, he's making use of that. On the other hand, he's giving Bayraktar drones to Ukraine, and,
Correct.
and passing on other military equipment to Ukraine,
Correct.
criticizing Russia at times. So Erdogan thinks that he can play both sides to his advantage and all that. But at some stage, his bluff has to be called. So part of it, I think, is that his bluff is being called.
Okay. Sir, you have raised two, three important issues. First is that Turkey has been, trying to juggle with the two sides, favoring one underhand and the other one other one as per the existing deals and protocols which are there between Russia and Turkey. I've also got reports that Turkey's economic condition is very, very, very bad. In fact, it's very, very poor. Maria, I would request Maria, could you throw some light? You were discussing in the informal discussion that the Turkey's economic condition is also very bad. And what do you have to say on diverting the entire exports of Ukraine uh, back to themselves? Actually, it didn't go to Africa and the Latin American countries where they were actually required, where they used to go actually. Before the war, they used to go to these places. Now you found everything finding way back to America. So how do you explain this kind of a behavior of the West vis-a-vis, how should I say, East or Russia?
Well, first of all, let's look at the initial terms of the so called grain deal. Please do not disregard that it was not a clear cut standard agreement that was made a year ago. There were two agreements signed. The first agreement was between Ukraine and Turkey.
Okay,
And this is what was called the Grain Initiative. And the terms envisaged were that every 120 days, this initiative was to be prolonged, depending upon absence of any kind of restrictions or reservations. The second deal that was, and this agreement, the initiative was signed in the witness of the United Nations Secretary General Guterres.
that,
It was
that's
all
right.
done in Istanbul.
Yeah,
At
we
the
are talking
same
about.
time, the second agreement was signed between Turkey and Russia, which was called Memorandum of Understanding with validity of 3 years. And
Okay,
again, with the witness of Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
okay,
These Turkey-Russia agreement signed between the defense ministers of these countries envisaged certain rules how Russia gets access to the international market in order to open the way for Russian grain, Russian fertilizers to the world markets to be delivered. And also, there was a clause that certain rules would be introduced for making payments through the SWIFT system, because at that time already the Russian banks were banned from using the SWIFT system, and basically no international payments could be made for any kind of international transactions. Also, at that time, there were certain so called sanction packages adopted by the European Union that forbade the Russian ships to enter European seaports. And
Okay.
also, the international insurers could not insure anymore any Russian freight forwarders. So basically, Russians were expected to have a certain well, under this agreement, the so-called memorandum, Russians were expecting a certain loosening of imposed restrictions. And it so happened that when these two transactions that were envisaged to start working simultaneously and basically in parallel to each other, but when they started working, only the Ukrainian agreement started working. And this is how Ukrainian grain started leaving three Ukrainian seaports, Odessa, Chernomorsk, and Pivdенny, to deliver the grain to international markets. At the same time, the Russian part of the deal was kept on standby. But again, at the same time, the so called joint coordination center started working in Istanbul under the auspices of the Turkish military. And this coordination center, it was entrusted with a mission to check on the boats going to Italy to collect the grain, and also to check on them when they were taking the grain out of Ukrainian seaports to international sea markets. So this kind of inspections were carried out in Istanbul, and Russians were actively participating in these inspections. There were members of the Russian side sitting at the Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul, and the understanding was that maybe tomorrow, maybe today, the Russian part of the deal envisaged by the memorandum would start working. And this is what they were talking about all the time. I mean, the Turkish side and the United Nations side, and every 3 months, when the Ukrainian deal was to be prolonged, they were telling the Russians, okay, well, we're working on it, but it's a very complicated issue. Please be patient, but very soon certain benefits would be generated from this transaction, and Russia would benefit in terms of access to the SWIFT system and other what was envisaged in the memorandum. And Russians were patient. They kept waiting uh, in apparent hope that sooner or later the issues, at least partially, would be resolved. But it never happened. And already the situation became quite tense in May when the Russians said, well, 120 days for extension or prolongation that is required under the Ukrainian side of the deal. It's not correct. We would be ready to give our consent for 60 days only. And we do hope that during these 60 days, to expire on the 17th of July, the
Yeah.
issue in Russian favor would be at least partially resolved. But it never happened. And it so happened that it coincided with a very dynamic
Okay.
and important for Turkey period of time because we had elections in Turkey in middle of May, and the second tour of elections took place in the very end of May. So apparently, the Turkish contribution to resolving this so-called ambiguity wasn't very high. But as soon as election results became apparent, and it became apparent that President Erdogan would be in office at least for the last 5 years, then the government of Turkey started working very actively on extending the deal if, after the uh, 18th of July. And there was even talking about extending the deal for another 2 years, which means the very end of the Russia Turkey memorandum signed a year ago. And so hopes were still in the air, but of course, skepticism in Russia was on the rise. There were a lot of people who were saying we don't need this deal because we don't get any benefit from it. What we are doing, we are just wasting our time without any result. But still, Turkey wanted very much to make everybody happy because Turkey has very good relations with Russia, as we know. They're nearly strategic partners. They have cooperation in military matters in Syria, and this cooperation brought important results. So,
Maria, well, I understand what you're talking about, uh, but
Let,
this is the
let me
problem.
say something about economy.
Yeah, this is the problem here. I would like Brigadier Dhaya to comment on the issue which she said that they have very good relations. Yet this kind of a dissonance is taking place between the memorandum of, I mean, not even following the memorandum of understanding, and also on the economy, which you said. May I have your comments, sir?
Yeah,
on the
both sides
economy,
try and say that they have good
Brigadier
relations,
Dhaya.
but frankly speaking, uh, Turkey, Ottoman empires, and the Soviets and the Tsarist empire before that,
Yeah,
they were more of a competitive relationship rather than friendly relationship. And
yeah,
you know that everybody knows, Mari understands that they have fought wars in Erzurum and Rize and all
yeah,
these places, and you know Caucasus was a place where they have fought. Uh, they have fought a Crimean War where the Turks sided with the French and the British, and they went right up to Rostov on Don. So the relationship has been competitive, and you know the territory had changed hands from one side to another.
yeah.
Uh, Russia has always tried to be nice to Turkey whenever Turkey has had difficult problems with its NATO partners.
Okay.
And Turkey also, whenever they were miffed with NATO, they tried to make good relations with Russia,
Russia.
and that's what happened when they went ahead and bought S-400. Much
That's what.
against displeasure of the Americans and things like this, because that time, particularly after the Fatahullah Gulen, supposedly Fatahullah Gulen sponsored sort of a coup attempt in 2016, Putin
Yeah,
was the first person
to help
to
him.
have called up Erdogan and said, "Look, I'm with you, and take every action that is possible to, stabilize your regime and things of this nature." Which, incidentally, Erdogan has not done when Wagner went towards
Yeah,
Moscow. Erdogan didn't
yeah,
speak. He hasn't
yeah.
said anything about that. But Putin
Yeah.
was the first person to speak to Erdogan in 2016. So the
Correct.
thing is that certain kind of relationship helps both the countries. Uh, since the EU ambitions of Turkey are almost 100% finished now,
Finished.
uh,
Correct.
and they cannot be taken for granted by the West, they need Russia for all for the trade. For example, let's say, I mean, Maria would agree with me that I think about 60, 70,000 Russians, mainly females, are married to Turks and are living in Antalya, Marmaris area. So there is a relationship of that kind also. Last time in
Okay.
2015, when the Russian Su-24 was brought down near Hatay province and fell down in Syrian territory,
Okay.
that time when Putin tried to tighten the screws against Erdogan, the first thing he did was to stop the imports of Russian vegetables and fruits and things like this. And that was
Correct.
a huge, huge blow to Turkish
Turkey.
economy, because agricultural products was the second largest sort of a money earning scheme for the Turks after tourism. So the Russian tourists stopped coming, and the agricultural products stopped going to Russia. So that was Putin's way of tightening the screws against Erdogan, and Erdogan came to senses soon thereafter. So
Correct.
now, what happened in Armenia, in Karabakh region last year, or year before that,
Yeah, Nagorno.
was a clear case of both sides being on the opposite sides. The same thing was
Correct.
in Libya.
Yeah, they were
Wagners were on the other side, and Turks were on the
correct.
other side. In
Correct.
Syria, I don't think there is a cooperation. Astana Agreement is basically an effort to control conflict between the two so
Conflict.
that it
Yeah.
doesn't escalate. Otherwise, they are
Threatens.
still, they are on the opposite sides.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, they are on the opposite side. And
Correct.
if Russia has not resisted, Turks would have probably gone in for another sort of operation in Syria to capture more territory. So,
Correct.
this cooperation is all tactical. Let's face facts. But at the same time, it is true that Erdogan has not kept his promises, or not kept us what we call in our country, we call this word as dharma. See, when you are friendly with somebody, then be friends. Like, we have kept our relationship with Russia despite all the kind of pressure and names being called by everybody,
Correct.
because India is a different country, and we follow that kind of a belief that as long as you have friends, as long as you count the other person as friend, as long as the other fellow has been good to you, you never try and show him down. So therefore, we haven't now. It's a matter. Maria would be surprised to know that there are hundreds of business delegations from Ukraine who have come to India from time to time, and looking for military equipment, looking for other, non-lethal equipment and things of this nature. But India has never sort of given them anything. Despite protestations of the East, of the West. Now, the thing here is this: we're talking about Turkish economy. Let me just give you a word on Turkish economy. The
Yeah.
statistics, as we understand today, just 3-4 days back, the running inflation was 38.5%.
Oh my God. That's very high.
8.2%. In October last, the inflation was 85.5%. I do not know
Okay.
how Maria eats her chicken there. So how
I'll
expensive
ask
it must be. I can
I'll ask
understand.
Maria about it. I'll ask Maria
Uh,
about it.
yeah,
In regard to inflation or what?
yeah. And
Okay.
secondly,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
may I start from something different, gentlemen? In regard to Turkey-Russia relations, well, please do not disregard that the Ottoman Empire died 100 years ago. So
Okay.
whatever relations Russian and Ottoman empires had, it's the relics of the past. I'm
Okay.
talking about the current situation, about present times. And in Syria, Russia and Turkey have a very strong and productive strategic cooperation. Both of
Okay.
the countries admit this. And thanks to that, we still have Syria as an independent country, because without Russia and Turkey involvement, you never know what would have happened to Syria. We have examples of Libya, Iraq. I think I don't need to go into detail. Nowadays, yes, relations between Syria and Turkey are not good, but more and more often, President Erdogan keeps saying that he would be ready to meet with Bashar Assad. So we can expect that certain bettering of relations could be expected. there are some diplomatic contacts and many contacts. Well, of course, there is a very strong, maybe not highly
It, it,
advertised military
it,
cooperation between the
Well,
countries.
I,
And
I would not like to contradict you there, but except for
yeah.
saying that,
may
what's
please continue,
happening between,
sir.
just a sec,
I
what's
did
happening
not
between,
interrupt you. Let me
Uh,
finish what
what's
I
happening,
have to say.
uh,
yeah,
okay, I
Okay?
mean,
what's happening between Syria and Turkey today is a result of a different issue. Turkey's problems with its economy, Turkey's problems with its neighbors,
May I please continue,
like
sir?
Iran,
I'll give you a chance, Maria.
like Iran, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, all of them have tried to make up their relationship with Syria now. UAE opened its embassy there 2 years back. Saudis have now opened it. Saudi foreign minister has gone there. Bashar al-Assad was called to Saudi Arabia for the Arab League summit and
Yeah,
things of this nature. So what's happening is that the dynamics is changing over there. Turkey understands it fully well that the money which they hoped to reconstruction money in northern Syria, which they hoped they would get from Qatar and other places in Syria, independent of Bashar al-Assad, wherein they would be able to settle the refugees, would probably not be coming to Turkey now, would be coming directly to Bashar al-Assad. And he will be able to use that money for this. So therefore, there is a reset of relations taking place within the Arabian Peninsula, and
yeah.
because of which Turkey is forced to now, as you know, that Bashar al-Assad was in Saudi Arabia yesterday, today he's in Qatar, and tomorrow he's in UAE. In a
He
way, he is going there to get some money from each one of them.
yeah,
I know. So he has signed a deal with Saudi Arabia yesterday for selling some drones. But
correct.
other than that, he has gone there. They gave them $5 billion in the Turkish banks for safekeeping, basically to support Turkish economy. He's probably gone there to ask for more because he's in a terrible situation. But let me just give us statistics of different kind of economy, Turkish economy now. The economy showed a rebound. Their merchandise exports last year was about $250 billion. But unfortunately, the imports were about 340, $345 billion. So there was a current account deficit of about $90 billion. Within first 6 months of this year, their current account deficit is $40 billion already. And the government's loan, external debt, is about 54% of Turkish GDP, which is about $904 billion. If you include the private sector debt, then Turkey's debt is more than 100% of the GDP presently.
Okay,
So the inflation is running at 38.2%, but the bank interest rates are at 15%, which on 20th, another meeting of the board is taking place. Probably they'll increase the rates again. As a result of which, what has happened is that many Turks who could afford have converted their money in dollars or euros or have sent the money out. So the Turkish economy today is starving for funds. Qatar gave them $15 billion. UAE gave them $5 billion. So currency swap arrangement. So despite all this, Turkey is falling way short of the money. And the now for last 2 months at least, sorry, the trend is that the domestic consumption has started falling because people can't afford to buy things. As a result of which, Turkish economy is in doldrums. And Erdogan, now, if you see his body language, yesterday I saw his body language in Saudi Arabia, today in Qatar and all that, he is no more bossy that he used to be when he was threatening Greece in the Mediterranean, or when he was supporting Azeri Ilan Alio. When he was doing all this, now he is no more that bombastic in his sample, because I think the economy is weighing on him now, the poor state of
yeah,
economy.
yeah. Maria, actually, you also mentioned about the economy of Turkey that it is really in a
Yes,
bad
I
shape.
was about to mention it, but I was interrupted. If
No, no.
you don't interrupt me anymore, Rumel Bey, I will continue.
So,
Okay?
Have it,
so, so,
have it.
Well, let me
you,
finish about Turkey, Russia, and Syria,
yeah,
because it's important and it's closely related to the current economic situation in Turkey. Whatever contacts were going on during the past years between Turkey and Syria, many of them were going through Russian mediation. So we're talking about a three-side cooperation. So whatever continues to go between Turkey and Syria would definitely require Russian engagement,
Yeah.
be it intergovernmental contact or commercial interactions. In regard to economy in Turkey, yes, Turkey is not in the best economic situation nowadays. In regard to inflation, official data says that annual inflation as of 1st of July is 51%.
Oh, it's
Of
even
course,
worse
it's
than
a
32.
lot. Of course, it's a lot. It's not a good thing. Prices, in particular for food products, mass consumer goods, continue going dramatically up. And it's a very big burden to basically every household in Turkey. Of course, the government does certain things to make the people's life better, like the minimum wage was raised to 11,000 Turkish lira a couple of months ago. Now they're talking about a new raise. So things are being done. So the government is trying its best to resolve the matter somehow. And Russia is helpful in this matter because Turkey lives basically on Russian gas. Of course, Turkey buys natural gas from Iran, from Azerbaijan. Certain gas extractions have been started on the Turkish continental shelf of the Black Sea, but of course, it's peanuts. The major chunk comes from Russia. So the agreement was reached right before the elections that Turkey was postpone payments for gas it consumed in 2024. I mean, the gas coming from Russia. So it's a kind of fiduciary relationship that Turkey and Russia have today. And both countries, they value this relationship. They are talking about creating a gas hub in Western Turkey in order to sell the Russian gas to Europe, because nowadays the only way for the Russian gas to go to Europe is Turk Stream. The Western corridor doesn't work, and Russia has a lot of excess gas that it produces. So there are a combination of things that make the Russia-Turkey cooperation mutually beneficial. But on the other hand, please do not disregard that Turkey is not focused on Russia and only Russia. It also has quite a strong cooperation with Ukraine, both politically and economically, and of course, military. Let's be open. A lot of weaponry used currently in Ukraine, especially drones, Bayraktar drones, they come from Turkey. So it's a kind of quite a weird cooperation that exists and this is one of the things that I believe has affected the performance of the grain deal. And of course, in general, if things continue deteriorating on Ukrainian battlefields, it will impact the Turkey-Russia relations because depending upon how things go, Russia could become quite demanding. It could come up to Turkey saying, look, partner, what you are doing. As of now, Russians are quite patient. They do appreciate that politics is politics and there are no friends in politics. So what
Okay.
Turkey does, this is what the Russians say in the open, Turkey does for the benefit of
Okay.
Turkey.
Okay, Maria, we understand what you're trying to say, but don't you think this is a dangerous game?
Of
This
course
is
it is, but
this is
politics is a dangerous
for
game by
Turkey,
its
for
nature.
Turkey to play both the sides and expect to gain. and especially so, its economy is more dependent on Russia. We will leave this question here and move on to the next issue, which I because otherwise we will get stuck into this particular issue only. My next question is that after Erdogan won the election recently, his behavior has kind of changed. Earlier what he showed us some kind of maturity in approaching Russia. He was like one of the key figures in negotiations as well. I mean, a lot of trust was being given on him that he would be able to broker some kind of peace between Russia in the Ukraine war, but that has not happened. In fact, he started playing very weirdly. Earlier he used to expect that he would emerge as the Islamic world leader, like what Brigadier Dhaya said, that he was bossy over the Middle East and the West Asian countries. That has changed. At the same time, he has annoyed the Russians by sending the five battalion commanders of Azov into Ukraine. Now, all these behaviors are giving me a feeling of a person who's not very clear as to what he has to do. What is the end game plan of Erdogan? How is he going to chart his future in this kind of a complex situation where he has NATO to please? He wants entry into EU. That was one of the major aims, that he would like to get an entry into EU. That seems to be fizzling out. With Russia, it is not able to now gain traction because the grain deal is now into question. With the Middle East, he has started now. Is it that he's now approaching the Middle East to get over the problems? The current game
Okay.
plan. So,
Okay.
what's your view?
Let me just say something about it. This question. You see, first of all, Maria may not agree with me for whatever reasons, but I personally
We
feel
agree
that
to certain issues.
Russia also has a limited sort of a control over how Erdogan behaves. They don't have a stranglehold over him. He has his options. And he realized his options when the West went totally against Russia and Russia started getting isolated. We understand that the West hasn't succeeded in throttling Russian economy, and Russia is not without friends, but Russia has lost many friends. That's also true, and it's facing economic challenges. That's also true. So that being so, Erdogan, if you study his character right, for political character right from beginning, when he ditched Necmet and Erbakan
Hmm.
uh, in 1999. Thereafter, he has been making friends and leaving friends. Erdogan is nothing if he's not pragmatist. All his policies are run by pragmatism.
Okay.
When he wanted to establish control over the army, the tools that he used were patience. He
Hmm.
continued for a couple of years of progress or lifting people from poverty, collecting nationalists, secularists, and people of every persuasion under a big umbrella of his party AKP. Then, winning 2007 elections and much against army's wishes, bringing in Abdullah Gül as president. After having done that, then he started saying that in the name of accession to EU is demanding that the military's importance be reduced, that the whole setup in Turkey be democratized. So the next 7 years, from 2007 to 2012, actually, for next 5 6 years, he continued on that path. But the main aim was to reduce military's importance, to to gain upper hand in politics. And there, he was never shy of using Fethullah Gulen's setup. Fethullah Gulen's people, his myth, had infiltrated every sphere of Turkish life, starting from the schools, entrance examinations to military and civilian, this thing, as prosecutors, as judges, as academicians, everywhere. So he made use of them to start off these processes like Balayos, that is sledgehammer, and Ergenekon thing, in which very senior officers of the Turkish armed forces, including one of their chief of general staff, Ilker Başbuğ, they were put behind bars, and the process started. But when he fell out So he started falling out with the Fethullah Gulen people in 2013. He went after them, but released all these people in 2016 by saying that there wasn't enough proof to proceed against these military people. So used one set of people here, then used another set of people there. So he uses these people like this. He used, for example, Davutoglu. When Davutoglu, you remember, he's the person who said Turkey should have, enmity with none and friendship with all, or 100% friendship. So he used him initially when he made contacts with all these countries, and thereafter he discarded him. So similarly, the present finance minister Shimsek, for example, he's brought him back because his unconventional economic policies have brought untold misery to Turkey. But he had discarded him in between. When his previous home minister was having problems controlling his son-in-law, at some stage he realized that the home minister would get him votes, his son-in-law would get him bad name. So he discarded his son-in-law from the economy ministry. So therefore, he is pragmatic person. At one time, he said that China is carrying out genocide against Uyghurs. But when the Chinese tightened his screws and threatened to cut off economic relationship, etc., he sent Abdullah Gul first there and then went himself to Beijing and also made a visit to Urumqi. So the question is, this man is an opportunist. When he went to Libya, when he helped Azerbaijan, when he sent his ships into the Mediterranean opposing the French and the Greek ships, etc., etc., he was making use of the chaos existing in the international system. He showed that chutzpah, he showed that gumption to draw maximum advantage from the chaos that was taking place in this system. Now he has done that. Now what has happened is that, for example, the inflation in Turkey and the depreciation of lira against dollar was artificially suppressed, leading to the elections.
Okay.
So the Turkish central bank gave away a lot of foreign exchange reserves that they had. He shed those reserves and all that so that the lira doesn't depreciate much. Now you see, after elections, the lira has depreciated from 26 to 20, from $20, 20 liras per dollar to 27 liras per dollar today. Okay. So within a month and a half, it has gone down, let's say by 26% or 28%. It has gone down like that. So what has happened is that now he's in a tight situation. He made friendship with Qatar because he needed that money. And Al Thani gave him $15 billion as reserves in this thing, as currency swap. He bought certain properties in Turkey, gave money loan for infrastructure projects and things of this nature. Now, when Saudi Arabia showed them their eyes in 2018, after Khashoggi's murder took place, and he was trying to be, he was trying to be a big boss, MBS simply told him where to get off. Correct. And told him to do what you please. And when he supported this Qatar, when UAE, etc., UAE and Saudi Arabia, etc., were trying to boycott Qatar, they again showed him his place. Now what is he doing? When the Israeli armed forces went into Jenin in Palestine, he hasn't criticized Israel. He has made peace with Egypt. He has now made peace with Saudi Arabia and with UAE because he needs money. Now he's trying to, he let Sweden become the member of NATO because he thought that he can get something from the West. This year or next year, he's going to go to the IMF. And there he cannot get that IMF bailout without Western support. Okay. So whenever he has to take favors from the West, he will try and show distance from Putin. Okay. Whenever he has to get something, take something from the Putin, he'll show some movement that side. So he is a person who actually has lost trust of people, frankly speaking. He's a great politician. He is a great election winner. He's a person who can exploit a situation very well. But at the end of the day, everybody sees through his characteristics. So I personally don't think that he's a person who's a great statesman or something like that. I think he's a good politician.
Okay, Maria, I think there was a personality sketch made out by Brigadier Dhaya of Erdogan, which explains possibly his international behavior, what is happening. Do you have any quick comments on that, or do you think
Yes, I
that,
do.
yeah, yeah, quickly?
I thought we were going to discuss what goes on between Russia and Ukraine and
Yeah, yeah,
economic
yeah.
situation in Turkey,
But
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 not the
but but,
personality of President Erdogan. I'm a bit
but
surprised,
yeah, yeah. But
and
as it, as it
I
happens,
can.
discussion lead to one question after the other. So this is a question which now has come up during the discussion. Your quick comments on that, and then I'll ask the last question.
Yes, I do have comments on that,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
I think you disregard Rumel Bey that President Erdogan came to power because he fed the poor. He basically contributed to improving living standards of the certain strata of the Turkish people that were neglected for decades by the previous governments. This is what's made him the most popular leader of Turkish Republic. That's why he is in power for the third decade nowadays.
Okay,
Economically, well, in every country there are good days and bad days, but still people trust him and people believe in him. He gained almost 50% of the national vote. On one hand, you may say that it means the country is divided, that half of the country supports Erdogan and his politics, and other countries support the opposition. But on the other hand, it's a lot to have 50% of 80 million people vote. So I would say that President Erdogan is a very successful leader, both domestically and internationally. And the latest example, let's not look at the Ottoman Empire or at what was going on between Russia and Turkey in the 1930s or even 50s. But if we look at the Vilnius summit just a couple of days ago, he was the star performer. They were expecting Zelensky to be the star performer, but it so happened the way Erdogan presented the case of Sweden and its NATO accession, it's made him the hero of the day. So you can't disregard that he's a remarkable national leader. I'm very sorry to say, and I think that my assessment is objective because I'm not Turkish. I'm a foreigner living in Turkey for many
yeah,
years, as a matter of
yeah.
fact.
Yeah, yeah, but your stay in Turkey has been quite long, I suppose. You do hold Russian citizenship. We will not disagree with what your perception is. You are giving a perception on the ground, and we accept it as the perception coming out from Turkey. And so we will leave this particular issue at that. What the impression which the world gets is that probably Erdogan is pragmatic, a realist, which at times annoys few people. At times it annoys guys who are not being, honored. For example, if he's supporting the NATO and at the cost of Russia, obviously Russia won't like it. Or if he's supporting Ukraine at the cost of Russia, definitely Russia won't like it. So there is this feeling in the environment that his personality today is pragmatist, opportunist. What you are saying is that locally, internally, he has created an image of a very popular leader, and we accept that, and we leave this particular issue at that point. But we need to also consider what the international opinion is about, in general, coming out from places like India. Because my next question is about India. India was one of the first countries to actually get into Turkey, Istanbul, when the earthquake took place. And after having done a very good job, as per us, I don't know on ground you would be able to confirm to us whether they did a job well or not. But at least our reports are that they did a good job and came out. And this was without any conditions. Our support was without any conditions. Afterwards, after a month or so, Erdogan gave a statement which is totally against the Indian case. I'm guessing. Right. So how do you explain Erdogan's behavior of this nature? Or do you think it is a long-standing kind of a cold relationship between India and Turkey that has come into play irrespective of any leader who's there in Turkey as a president? What do you have to say on this? What are your views of relation with India and Turkey?
Well, I don't know whether Maria would like to take it on. She may not have really paid attention to this relationship. Let me say
Uh,
something about it. As far as India is concerned, even in the first Balkan wars in 2012-14, India sent medical teams in support of Ottoman Empire. Turkish parliament, part of the Turkish parliament was paid for by India.
yeah,
Okay, uh, by Indian contributions, etc. So from that point of view, there has been a relationship for a long time. Unfortunately, uh, India's independence and creation of Pakistan created an anomalic situation in that whatever India did good for Turkey was appropriated in the name of Pakistan. And India's relationship with Pakistan got reflected in India-Turkish relationship. And part of the problem was that Pakistan and Turkey both joined Baghdad Pact, which became CENTOS thereafter.
yeah,
They
CENTOS.
are together in D8, they are together in OIC. So, as a result of which, and they were both, under the American tutelage, their defense relationship grew like anything. I mean, it was second nature. For example, when after this 2016 sort of coup attempt, when more than 50% of Turkish Air Force officers of the rank of colonel and above were dismissed, stroke jailed, and Turkey did not have enough number of pilots to run all its planes. Then there were Pakistani pilots who were deputed to Turkey to train new pilots, Turkish pilots, and in an emergency, if required, to fly those F-16 planes for Turkey. Now that was the kind of relationship that developed. Despite that, knowing fully well that our relationship is good and that till Erdogan turned he turned openly Islamic, sometimes after 2012 elections. He also emphasized on secularism and all that. Officially, they have still not given up on secularism, although they are secularists in name only now. So what has happened is that India and Turkey, although there was differences with regard to Pakistan, etc., and we had always supported Greeks on Cyprus. We supported Armenia when it came to Azerbaijan, for example. So there were these kind of differences, but basically starting from Cold War. Our trade with Turkey is still about $10 billion, incidentally, vis-a-vis Pakistan, which is just about $1 billion, so 10 times more than them. Now, so relationship has been okay from that point of view. But what has happened is that ever since Erdogan started behaving like a caliph,
Yeah,
wanting to become the tallest Muslim leader of the Muslim Ummah in the world, he chose this as one of the subjects. He chose Palestine as another subject, supporting Hamas and Hamas living in Istanbul and things of that nature. So he started these kind of issues that he tried to show prominence in saying, going to Chad, going to Somalia, going to various places. So he tried to show himself as the world's tallest Muslim leader. Of course, Turkey has, and under his leadership particularly, Turkey has always overstretched beyond its capacity. It doesn't have the financial muscle to really be so interventionist, so to have that kind of a position globally. It doesn't have that. So it has overstretched itself. Now, when this earthquake came, India, of course, voluntarily, without even the request coming, sent so much of aid to Turkey. Comparatively, almost one-fifth of that was sent to Syria and more to Turkey. Our guys did well, came back without fanfare. We were not looking for IOUs. I think we left it to the Turkish people to realize as to whether India was a friend or not. So it was a dostluk, it was a dosti between the people, not so much between the governments. I think it was as a matter of habit. Erdogan repeated his formulation on Kashmir, which is, in any case, we realize that doesn't mean a thing. Uh, we don't care about what anybody says about it. It is our part, and it will always remain our part. So, therefore, we have tried to ignore that kind of a thing coming from Erdogan. But also, simultaneously, I also see that of late, there has been very little anti India rhetoric emanating from Ankara or Istanbul.
That's right.
So, to that extent, I think it's manageable more than anything else, because Erdogan himself is a realist, is a pragmatist. He would realize that making friends with continuing to be making friends with Pakistan at the cost of its friendship with India is not going to serve Turkish interests. It's not in Turkey's interests. If India is going to be the third largest power in next 3 4 years time, I think it makes sense for Erdogan to have good relations with India rather than to have good relations with Pakistan in opposition to India. So, being a pragmatist, he realized. But in any case, I mean, he has 5 years to go, and in the life of countries, 5 years is a blink, or even less than a blink. So, it doesn't really matter. Economic relationship are absolutely isolated from the political relationship. They are growing, and there are a number of Indian companies and a number of Turkish companies operating in India, including Pasha Bache, which Maria Hanam would have had, used their glasses and things like that. So, um, so I think it's okay. It's just manageable as far as we are concerned. He had his compulsion of being a leader of the Ummah, which is now realized that is
Yeah.
beyond him to sort of overtake Saudi Arabia or overtake even Egypt, which is not in a great
Not
economic
really a
sense.
very powerful dispensation.
So I think he will moderate his ambitions on that front. In any case, part of his ambition was to have that legacy that Ataturk enjoys, and to be a leader of Turkey in the 100th year of its independence. So this year will be concentrated on managing the economy and to show his grandeur as the leader of Turkey who has transformed Turkey after 100 years of its independence. So he wants a bigger name than Ataturk. He's jealous of him. So all his actions partly were related to that. So I think we can live with that. There's no problem.
Okay, final comment from you, Maria, and then we are going into the question answer sessions from the audience, because I have got a lot of questions now which the audience has thrown. How do you see Turkey moving forward in the next 4 to 5 years? I'm not going to do a crystal gazing beyond that, because let's see the Erdogan tenure. How is he going to charter the course for Turkey in the region as far as the Eurasia is concerned, including
In my
US?
understanding, currently we are witnessing a very strong dynamic coming to Turkish foreign policy. Again, if we look at the Vilnius summit, it means that Erdogan has intensified his effort to building stronger relationship with the European Union, because let's recall when he said, okay, we will ratify the memorandum on Sweden's accession to the NATO, provided that the European Union would activate the Turkish accession to the European Union, which means that he is really serious about Turkey one day becoming a new member of the European Union. Some people would say that it's the money issue because he needs the funds in order to raise economy in Turkey. But anyway, the pro-Western stand is on the rise, and I believe it will continue. Also, today and yesterday, he is touring the Middle Eastern countries. He signed very important agreements with Saudi Arabia, with whom he had quite a strong friction in 2016 because of Khashoggi case. So now it looks he has come to terms with Saudi Arabia. They signed very important agreements. Qatar is a very special partner. And again, if we recall what happened in 2017, when Qatar was caught in a very bad situation, and basically a blockade was imposed on Qatar by the Gulf countries. It was Turkey who came to Qatar's rescue. And Qatar seems to be very grateful for that because when financial problems started in Turkey, the ruling emir, he did come to Turkish rescue by lending the funds. So this trend on building strong relationship in the Middle East, and let's not disregard Syria. I would expect very soon a personal meeting between Erdogan and Bashar would happen to bring the relationship back to the normal track. In regard to Southeastern Asia, to Asia in general, your region, you know that Turkey is very keen on developing relations with all the countries. Yes, there were certain frictions experienced with India in regard to its position on Jammu and Kashmir. Turkey is traditionally very close with Pakistan, but I would rather say it's like being in good relationship with brotherly Muslim country. That's the thing. But if you look at the last year Shanghai Cooperation Meeting when President Erdogan he had a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. His rhetorics were quite milder. He did not say that many strong words about Jammu and Kashmir issue. So I assume that we could expect some kind of bettering of relationship between Turkey and India during the next at least 5 years because his next term will be 5 years. That's the main trend. Let's make more friends the world over. And I think this is the key thing about Turkish foreign politics these days.
Okay, so I gather that while rest of the region would be manageable as far as as far as Erdogan is concerned, but his challenge still remains Russia-Ukraine war. How is he going to pitch vis-a-vis Russia, NATO, and Ukraine? That will remain the major challenge. How is he going to ensure the interest of getting into the EU? Uh, would be his primary focus in the next 4 to 5 years, is what we can conclude from this. And India would be a peripheral country as far as Turkey's focus is concerned. So, with that said, thank you very much. We'll start taking the questions from the audience. We have, of course, this question we have answered in some form. Why is the EU not controlling Turkey? All problems of EU, if you check the roots, are from Turkey. So, this he's going, I think, back into history as to how Europe was always addressed from the Ottoman Empire, etc. Would you like to say something on this, Brigadier? Sir?
Yeah, you see, EU controlling Turkey is not something that EU should be doing it, or it's EU's
Yeah, it's
business to
not
be doing
required.
it. It's not required. So what has happened is that EU has problems with Turkey of many kinds.
Yeah.
One, of course, is the problem from the EU side. EU primarily has proved itself to be a Christian club. One of the main reason why they have not, allowed Turkey to join EU, uh, and I have no hesitation in saying it, is because Turkey is not like them. Turkey
Okay.
is a Muslim-dominated country. Turkey's population is increasing. It has the second largest armed forces of NATO. If Turkey joins EU, its influence in EU will be disproportionate, and which most of the EU countries do not like. So that is part one. Second part is this, that uh, Turkey and EU till recently had that was the strongest economic relationship that Turkey had before Russia, of course, replaced EU. EU collectively still is the largest trading partner for Turkey, but amongst the single countries, it's not Germany or anything; it's Russia presently because of various reasons. Now, there are clashes of interests in the Mediterranean. On Cyprus, there is a problem. With regard to Armenia, there is a problem. because whereas most of the European countries consider Armenian massacre as a genocide, Turkey obviously is loath to admit that. On Cyprus is a part of EU, and as per the charter, uh, even if one country is opposing it, they have to take a decision by consensus. The Cyprus can always, or Greece or Cyprus, any one of them can say, sorry, Turkey cannot join. So they will not join. Knowing the situation fully well, although, I mean, Erdogan made a show now when he was trying to uh, put a condition of Sweden joining NATO with his joining EU. And EU countries have no appetite for it. They didn't even really give a proper response to it. So, but at the same time, uh, they will not let him join. That is one part, and he realizes that they will not let him join. So, therefore, he has to look at them for wherever the cooperation is helpful to Turkey, he will cooperate with them. For example, when he goes to IMF, the way things are, if they don't improve drastically, and I don't find any reason why they will, when he goes to IMF, he will need Europe's support to get that IMF bailout, which America would get it for him, of course. So there is no strong compulsion, no cultural connect, although there are millions of Turks who are living in European countries, mostly in the maximum number in Germany, of course. Because of the historical connection of First World War, and of course subsequently when under Marshall Plan Germany was reconstructing. That's the time a lot of workers from Turkey went to that place, and they have multiplied over there. So now EU has internal issues. Greeks, Cyprus, France, for example, last year there was in Mediterranean there was a clash between French and Turkey. Uh, Turkey, they have very little leverage on Erdogan. And Erdogan knows fully well that he will get very little from EU. So therefore, since there are no leverages, and since they don't see that they can get much from each other, EU cannot moderate Turkey's behavior. From that point of view, EU will be Turkey would be an outlier, and he will make full use of its membership of NATO to really ward off any threats from EU countries.
Yeah, I think that is a fair assessment, sir. Maria, would you like to say anything quickly on this? Would he
Yes,
still be? Yeah, yeah, okay. Quickly, right.
as I've said, half of the country voted against Erdogan because it supported the opposition, I mean the recent presidential elections. And all those people, they are pro-European Union. And during the past year, the European Union, it basically gambled at the opposition coming to power. That's why they did not develop any kind of meaningful relationship with Erdogan. But now, when Erdogan has won the elections and European Union needs Turkey as a trading partner, as a political partner, now it has to be on good terms with Erdogan. So we can say that now Erdogan has opened in Vilnius a new chapter in relationship with European Union. Now they would be ready to say yes to whatever Erdogan demands. Of course, we need to have a look at results. What would this yes generate in terms of tangible product? But anyway, this question about controlling Turkey on behalf of the EU, I think it generates from the memories of the past. When 20
Yeah,
years ago, Turkey was so
yeah, yeah. We
weak
agree to that. We agree to that. It's
that
a
it
past.
was,
It is a
yes,
historical
it
memory.
was
That is,
controlled by the United West, by the United States and the European Union. But during the 20 years in power of Erdogan and AK Party, the matter is over. It's a different Turkey, and it behaves in a different way on the international arena. So there is no way the European Union could control Turkey. Plus, do not disregard that the European Union we have today, it's something very much different from the European Union 30 years ago. So it has its own frictions and problems to solve.
Yeah, yeah, both sides actually. Even the EU's condition is not very happy. But only time will tell whether Turkey will go towards EU or will get admitted in EU. The Sweden deal was basically with that in mind, that they will give the concurrence for Sweden to enter NATO, and Turkey will get into the EU. But let's see how things pan out. I have another question, which is again a kind of a national question. So you would like to just say a quick comment. Since Turkey is trying to become more of a Muslim country, I think we answered this question that Turkey has moderated his, Erdogan has moderated his approach now towards the Islamic world, and he's kind of in a cooperation mode rather than a confrontationist mode. Would you like to add anything further to this, sir?
I think the general comment that
Yeah.
this trusted partner is a term which is very loosely used.
Yes.
No country would like to be just said. I mean, we often say strategic partner. He's our trusted partner. We are old friends, even when there are obvious problems in relationship. So these are very loosely used terms. After all, this is a confluence of interests. This is when the interests actually converge, then you would support somebody or you get support from somebody. It's a national interest that are the basis of relationship between countries. So far, Turkey has been supportive of everything that NATO does. So far, they have not openly revolted against anything that NATO does collectively. They were with them in Afghanistan, for example. They were there with in Iraq, although for its own reasons, for different kind of interests, but there was seeming unity. There has been difference with US on support to Kurds in north of Syria. But despite that, they have not broken off. After all, Trump withdrew American soldiers from a particular portion of northern Syria when Erdogan wanted to go in there and capture some territory. So they did. Of course, Russia stopped them from going deeper, but America at least made way for them. So far there hasn't been a problem there, and I think America is very keen to retain that kind of a relationship rather than let go of it,
Okay.
because it's not in interest of anybody else. So yes, I think they are till they are part of NATO, they'll continue to be trusted like any other country in an alliance would be.
Yeah, yeah. A quick question to you, sir, Brigadier Romel. Will Turkey be given membership of EU in the view of Turkey dropping its objection of
Of
Sweden joining
course, there
NATO?
is no chance. There is no chance in hell or heaven. Uh, there's simply no chance. You see, like I told you, Turkey. Maria made a reference to it. The EU of today is different. EU was much more cohesive earlier. Now it is EU which has internal schisms like this. And America helped create the new Europe coming into EU. Poland and all these countries coming into EU was basically meant to disrupt the cohesion of EU, frankly speaking. They already had UK as a fifth columnist in EU, and then they started supporting Romania, Bulgaria, and Poland in particular. Basically, I think here I should be seen to be should be seen to be making this comment in favor of, because Maria is there. It is like this that uh, Europeans were trying to Europeans and Russia were trying to come together to make a strong framework of Europe. And if they had come together, then the Americans were not required in Europe thereafter. So Americans tried to do everything to disrupt that kind of a construct taking shape. Uh, Having said that, I'm of the opinion that elements in France, in Germany, in Austria, in many of these countries, Greece in particular, Cyprus, they would never want Turkey to join EU, and they will not let them join EU. Even so there's no, I don't see anything of this nature coming up. I think that was a gambit that he was throwing. He was telling them why don't you give it, but I think by then Erdogan had already realized that he had, for 1 year he had been delaying Sweden's and Finland's accession. Finland he had agreed before, so he said he probably realized that trying to be difficult now is going to be disadvantageous to him rather than advantages. That's why he gave in. Otherwise, I don't think any European country made any positive sign of agreeing to what Erdogan wanted.
Okay, we have Maria's comment already on this issue. She had said that Turkey would get into EU based on the fact that the way now Erdogan is pitching. So we'll go to the next question, and this is related to what Maria had been speaking about profiling. There are a number of comments, Maria, on the profiling of Erdogan, and I must flash it on to you so that you get as to what it is. Before that, a quick comment on your the remark that Maria's point that he helped poor shows his control on people, but at some point he will have to come to reality, which will have to be soon. So this is something about what you had commented. So I thought let me share it with you. Then there is another again comment on the profile. The profile of Erdogan shows the irony of populism versus pragmatism, something which is happening in number of countries. Then this one, some way of observation. When I visited Turkey in 2006, I found that Turks were crazy about Indian movies. I think that indeed suggests that India should use its soft power to improve relations. Quick comment by you on this. Will it have an impact? Soft power of India on Turkey to further strengthen the relations between India and Turkey.
Well, coming from the movies, yeah, this kind of soft power is a very strong instrument because it would be big demand in a country like Turkey with more than 80 million people and a strong strata of ladies who sit at home and watch TV day and night. So for them, soap opera produced in India would be something that would build stronger their affiliation to India. That's for sure. In regard to populism of Erdogan, well, he is a shrewd politician. He knows what strings to pull. This is what he started from when he came to power in 2002. Because the previous government, they were basically neglecting the poor. They hardly cared about them. And he made quite a case. The first, I remember very well his first year in power. All those people that were neglected, that managed their living on very moderate budget, all of a sudden they started going shopping to a good quality supermarket. And ladies who usually sat at home for decades, they started going out with their husbands, going to shopping malls, traveling all around Turkey. And it created a very strong positive impact on the people. And it contributed a lot on their admiration of Erdogan. And he played very well with this. That's why when his post-election result was 37%, then it went up to nearly 50. So he is a shrewd political gambler. He knows how to play and he knows how to control the country. And actually, now when he has built his position so strong, he expands his influence on the neighboring country. And this is what his trip to the Middle Eastern countries is about. And this is what his show up in Vilnius is about. He is trying to squeeze Putin, and this is what this Green Initiative is about. In regard to Armenia, look, Turkey has always been most supportive of Azerbaijan. And it was with contribution of Turkey that Azerbaijan all of a sudden felt strong to open military action against Armenia. Of course, it was a fair thing to do because Nagorno-Karabakh legally It's a part of Azerbaijan. And sooner or later, these military facilities were due to open. But of course, Azerbaijan would have never done that if it did not have a strong support of Turkey. So Turkey is basically everywhere, and this is what the foreign policy of this country is about.
Okay,
Let me just
Maria.
make let me just make one comment here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree with her, with Maria here, when she says, he has always advocated a just society, which means that the people who are on the lower side of the economic ladder should have their say. Plus, he has always been personally pious. So piety has been no smoking, no drinking, rule for, enough time for family, no LGQBT, etc., etc. So, this man appeals to the conservatives. He appeals to the poor. Yet, in making infrastructure, etc., with the massive pace that he started off in 2003 until 2012, 13, etc. Now, third bridge over Bosphorus, another bridge over Marmara, another bridge over Dardanelles Strait, Istanbul Channel, a different kind of a Bosphorus kind of a link, new Ataturk airport that has come, which is probably largest in the world. So all these major infrastructure projects, etc., have improved the life of the people undoubtedly. And Turkey has now a per capita income of over $10,000 per person, per capita GDP. Now, undoubtedly, he is that. And he's pragmatist. That, like I said, like Mahatma Gandhi did in India, wherein Madan Mohan Malviya also, and the Muslim leaguers also, and Aligarh Muslim University people also, Gadar Party also, everybody under one big tent. So he knows how to get people under one big tent. And it has been helped because there has been no charismatic leader. There was one who was emerging who would have defeated him in this election, Imam Ekram Mamoglu, the mayor of Istanbul. But then he played his dirty tricks in fostering a case against him, because of which he would have been probably disqualified from fighting. So the question simply, and remember, he is the person, Ekremoglu is the person who defeated Binali Yildirim as in the election to mayor of Istanbul. Second thing is, 10 of the 30 big municipalities in Turkey today are controlled by opposition,
Okay.
by CHP of Kılıçdaroğlu, who is an insipid, uninspiring leader, unfortunately, and he foisted himself as a contestant. If the mayor of Istanbul had fought an election, all internal surveys, even in Turkey, were showing that he would have defeated sort of Erdogan. But Erdogan played dirty against him. But that's fine. I mean, he's there in it for elections. Even for example, TRT, which is the Turkish comment kind of a thing, like Doordarshan in India, gave 32 hours of prime time to Erdogan versus 35 minutes to his competitor Kılıçdaroğlu. Now that's how the resources were, pitted against the opposition candidate. But the mistakes lie with opposition candidates also. But I'd agree with Maria in one thing, that this man has combined his populism, has combined feeling for the poor, and nationalism, which is a hallmark of every Turk, be it Ezevit, when he went in to attack Cyprus, or when he went and captured Öcalan from Kenya. Every Turkish politician or leader is a nationalist, if nothing else. So nationalism goes with him, feeling for poor goes with him, conservatism goes with him, and in economic behavior, like in infrastructure, etc., he's a capitalist as well. So it's a big tent that he combines various things, and he's a smart politician, undoubtedly.
Yeah. Maria said he's a shrewd politician. So I think shrewd politician was the word which Maria used, and what you are describing kind of converge finally in opinion, and we can say that now we agree to agree.
Good.
So okay, okay. The last question is, Turkish-made drones have performed reasonably well in the Ukraine conflict. This is why we can Rainan. It's a low-cost option. What are the chances of India procuring these? Now, this question only Brigadier Daya can answer.
And
Maria was
let,
able
let me
to.
answer this. Let me
I
answer this.
Yeah.
they have two three kinds of drones, and Bayraktar, of course, is the bigger one. And now Bayraktar is uh, a newer version is coming, a heavier version is coming.
Mhm.
Although they have their own problems also, in the sense that certain parts that optical parts, or optoelectronics parts which Canada used to give them, have been stopped. So Turkey is trying to make something of their own as an alternative. Um, they are also giving it to Pakistan, and considering that military relationship between Pakistan and Turkey, it will be one of those things that Pakistan would request them not to be involved
Share
with
it,
India in the
not to
military
share it.
matters. And since the Turkish production is not so much that they can supply to the whole world, they've yesterday only signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia also.
Mhm.
Ukraine can do with more because their Western countries are ready to pay for those drones, as many as he can give to. So there's no chance of them giving it to us. Besides, the second, which is more important thing, is that in drone technology, India itself has made significant
Improvement.
advances. And today's paper, if people have read, even from one of the Indian companies only, India is going to buy drones worth 10,000 crore rupees from just one company. There are many other companies which are, of course, going to supply drones to Indian armed forces, and the high quality, this thing, the Predators. In any case, we are 31 of them we are getting from America. Rest of them, we will have large number of them in our inventory. Next 5 years, probably we'll have the second largest or third largest drone inventory in the world, and all of it, except for these Predators, will be made in India. So we don't require these drones from Turkey, and we'll probably have better drones than Turkey produces today.
I think that sums up our today's discussion, sir. Thank you very much, Brigadier Daya and Maria, for having spared your time and joined us. We did have a very, very agitating discussion, and it is always good to have an agitating discussion. If everybody speaks the same language, that's not discussion. That is one-way traffic. I think it was fun, and it was also educative. Very much we enjoyed the entire discussion. I'm sure our audience will also enjoy it, who have missed it and who are going to listen to it subsequently. Thank you, and good night to both of you. Thank you
Thank you.
very much, Sajahan.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you. All the best.